A very warm welcome to you all for our session this afternoon. As you know, the subject is personal resourcefulness in times of change and building our own resilience during COVID-19. The session is primarily aimed at people working in higher education institutions. However, SUMS have generously widened the audience to include education professionals from across the sector, including some schools and colleges. And I also know we have some colleagues from SUPC, so you're all very welcome today. So before we start, I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge really the current circumstances that we're working in. This webinar is very sort of forward-thinking and forward-looking and positive and constructive, but I'm really conscious that in many different ways we've all been touched by COVID-19, and I thought it was important to reflect, take a moment to reflect on that, whether people may have lost a loved one, been unwell themselves, or just been impacted through work or the lockdown. These are very unusual times that we are discussing this topic in. So please, we just wanted to make sure that we took a moment to reflect on that. Okay, so just by way of introducing myself, I am Felicity Gasparro. If we could just move the slide on, Grace, thank you. I'm an associate of SUMS Consulting with experience of completing a number of assignments across several higher education institutions. Before this, I was the head of marketing ops at the University of Reading, and prior to that, I enjoyed a long and successful career with the John Lewis Partnership. As well as being an associate to SUMS, I'm also the owner of an organisation called Oyster Outcomes Limited, and we're the proud suppliers of coaching, supervision and mentoring services to SUMS, their members and their key contacts such as yourselves. And it's in that capacity that I am hosting this session. Our overarching coaching philosophy is defined well by the International Coaching Federation. Coaching has been proven to improve productivity and performance and delivers a return on investment for both the individual and the sponsoring organisation. We believe coaching is a targeted and effective way of enabling others to develop strategies to improve their own performance. At the end of the session, I will be joined by a colleague, Fola Ikpahai, who will help to facilitate the question and answer session. Fola is a principal consultant at SUMS Consulting and is their change lead. We've worked together on several projects as our service strands of change and coaching often complement one another. So on this occasion, she's my wing woman. Grace is our producer for the session. You won't see Grace, but she will be making sure that everything is running really smoothly behind the scenes. We've disabled the chat with one another and video functions for the duration of the presentation. And this is just to limit distractions and enable you to really concentrate in on what I'm describing. We will be receiving Q&As, questions through the Q&A function on the toolbar, which is most likely at the bottom of your screen. You might have to just hover over the bottom of your screen to see it come up. So we've just taken a screenshot here just to show you in case you're not familiar with Zoom. I imagine that after 8 weeks of virtual working, most people have a good level of familiarity, but just in case. If you do have any questions, then you can chat to Grace through the chat function directly and she will be able to help you. So Fola, as I mentioned, we'll be monitoring your questions as we go through the session and we'll have some discussion time at the end. This is a safe and non-judgmental space, so please feel free to ask away. You can anonymise yourself when asking questions and, you know, we just want you to feel free to explore this subject as much as possible. If you're new to coaching, welcome and enjoy. If you're an experienced coaching client, we really hope you learn something new. And for everyone, we just hope you enjoy more than anything an hour of being in this coaching space, focusing away from the current challenges. All of the models and references that we make during the course of the webinar are summed up at the end of the slide deck, so you can read more if you wish. You will receive follow-up content shortly after the webinar, and these will include a short survey. I would really welcome your constructive feedback so that I can continue to improve my own offer and continue to shape and develop the SUMS coaching offer. Okay, so the session includes today, the overriding objective is to give you some new ideas and strategies to enable you to break down what resilience means to you in the context of working in the education sector, and how that may have impacted on you, how the changes, current changes may have impacted on you, how you can draw on your own personal resources to take the opportunity to grow from this experience. This includes us working through 2 coaching models live to help you get started on drawing on your personal resources, and starting you to help to visualise what your new normal will look and feel like as we're slowly coming out of lockdown, and particularly with the emphasis on the education sector. What can you do to look after yourself as expectations from others mount? Okay, I'm just going to take a drink. So I hope that's clear, and I hope that sounds like a good use of an hour. So let's start by taking a look at the context of where we are right now and how the power of words can play an important role in this framing a constructive future. The Kubler-Ross change curve will be familiar to many of you. COVID-19 will most likely have seen you going forwards and forwards again through all the stages of shock, denial, confusion, blame, resistance, acceptance, exploration, problem solving, and decision making. Using the curve as a tool to measure where you truly are in respect to change, you might find you can spot times when your overall work performance and indeed home life will have dipped. I certainly know this is true of myself. The level of ambiguity through news updates and media-induced anxiety could have been unhelpful allies as you continue to work through to this period. You might be furloughed and unable to work. You might be concerned about whether you will return to work at all. You're most likely to be concerned about the strategy to return your students and pupils to your institution, college or school. Tuesday's announcement by Cambridge about its approach to going online, teaching fully online until September 21 will have seriously thrown the cat amongst the pigeons for some. We know that 90% of prospects were still planning to attend prior to that announcement, but of a sample group surveyed, a substantial amount, I think that 53% of home students said they would defer if the offer was online completely. And how to access the international market remains a challenge. If you're feeling unsettled by all the change that's going on around you, you are in good company and you are not on your own. So in plain speak, we are on a roller coaster. Some will feel more in control than others, but if during the last few months you felt that stomach churning sense of disorientation, that's completely normal. I'd like you all to take 30 seconds just to think about where you are right now on that roller coaster and to take part in our poll. You should now be able to see the poll on your screens. Just take a few moments to reflect and vote on which stage describes you best right now. So are you in shock, denial, confusion, blame, resistance, acceptance, exploration, or problem solving and decision making? Okay, still a few more seconds just for the last few people to vote. Panelists can vote as well, so I'm gonna, yeah, maybe go into that. Yeah. Okay, so Grace, if we can just end the poll there, please. So really interesting, if we can share those poll results, that actually along the change curve, it seems to be that this group of people are really nudging towards that acceptance and exploration stage. A couple of people are back in confusion, and that's completely understandable. And then a little bit of resistance there, and two people are into that problem solving and decision making. So my prediction was that we would be quite scattered across the roller coaster, and I'm quite surprised by the level of acceptance and exploration. That's interesting to me. You notice that the Kubler-Ross model contrasts time taken to work through change against performance and output. So the more efficiently and effectively you work through the change curve and resolve any difficulties, the sooner your performance will improve. That's the theory. So if we make an assumption that one of the outcomes you want to achieve from this webinar is to work through change and improve your personal resilience and therefore performance at work, the next slides will help you to achieve this. Another model which you can use with yourself and others to identify where you are on your change journey is the William Bridges model, managing transitions. So this might be new for some of you. I'm just going to take a moment to pause and let you just look at the slide and take that in. So we've got the 3 stages of endings, neutral zone, and new beginnings. So I do really think it's important for us to spend some personal time in the first step of endings, which really asks us to end well. So the past is in the past. Some of the ways we used to live and work have gone forever, and we need to say goodbye. My advice to you is don't underestimate the value of spending some time in this step. For some, this is easy, and maybe our poll has shown that what existed before wasn't necessarily working and it needed to change. COVID has given us the opportunity to accelerate through to new ways of working. For others, though, we aren't all that happy with being propelled through change. We were fine as we were, and, you know, this has sort of been foisted upon us. Recognising this for yourself and for others can be a really helpful step in ending well and getting ready for the future. I suggested that it's likely that we're currently in the neutral zone, which really speaks to the points about being impatient to get back to normal or a new normal, sceptical about advice coming through and plans afoot, and again, a series of ambiguous government announcements won't have helped that. Internal conflict is bubbling up, so people have sort of got on and tolerated each other for a long period of time, but as we agitate towards moving towards that new beginning, perhaps there's a little bit of conflict arising between team members. But at the same time, there's a rise in creativity, nudging towards creating ideas about the future and acceptance that the past is in the past. If you happen to be in new beginnings, this is all about the point where we feel as though we've taken a step into the new normal. We experience a mixture of emotions, including anxiety, hope, enthusiasm, and energy. Again, I'm just going to pause for a moment just to ask you to look at this model and really think about where you are. Are you holding on to the past or sitting in the neutral zone, or are you raring to go in new beginnings? Okay, you might want to take a few notes as we go through this session, and that's absolutely fine. If you've got a pen and paper to hand, that would be useful. So, my apologies, I seem to have lost my speaker notes for the rest of the presentation, so I am going to just talk. Thinking about the words that we use and the way that we talk to ourselves, whether it's spoken, unspoken, so the non-verbal, or written, means a lot, actually. So perhaps somebody that might be stuck in that sort of that ending place or further back on the change curve we might be seeing some of these words come through, and I've shamelessly borrowed some lyrics from Mary J. Blige's song Just Fine. So she's just basically saying she's fine, she wouldn't change her life, everything's just fine, keep it the way it is. Alternatively, if you are looking ahead, if we can just do the next slide, please, Grace. I picked up this piece on LinkedIn, actually. It's through the Huffington Post, and it was really interesting. So, you know, really very basic flip chart, but nothing should go back to normal. Normal wasn't working. If we go back to the way things were, we will have lost the lesson. May we rise up and do better. So again, in terms of the messages and the words that we're using here, they're actually really powerful because they're sort of forbidding previous ways of working and really ending with quite an assertive statement where we rise up and do better. And looking at that in terms of, if we can move on to the next slide, if we're looking at that in terms of words having impact and meaning, and from a neuro-linguistic programming point of view, this is what I took away from it. So from Mary J. Blige's song, life was fine before this came along. I was happy with myself before COVID, and I was happy with how things were. I just want to go back to normal. I don't want to change, thanks. And then looking at the other statement from the Huffington Post piece, you've got the commanding statement, so nothing should go back to normal. Then you've got normal wasn't working, which is basically saying let's start again. We're at risk of losing something special if we don't change, and I've seen that written across a lot of articles actually recently, is that if we don't take this opportunity to change all sorts of things, including our approach to the climate and the approach to the way that we work, the way that we learn, then we really have missed a trick, a big, so taking a positive out of what's been a very difficult situation. And then that inspirational statement, may we rise up and do better. So again, I'll just let you look at that slide just for a minute and just think about the words that particularly stand out and chime with you. So if we can just move on to the final slide of this section, please, Grace. So what I was left with was this embedded command, rise up and do better. And when I read it, I literally sat up in my chair and leant forward and thought, do you know what? Actually, yes, I'm going to seize this moment. I'm going to take this opportunity and I'm going to really embrace what we've got. And I'm going to do that across all aspects of my life, actually. So it taps into my natural personality anyway. I'm very much someone who likes to learn, do things better, overcome obstacles. But that really helped me. Just in one summary was rise up and do better. Interestingly, I reposted that original post on LinkedIn and I got 2,300 views, and I got something like 70 engagements from it. The original post from Arianna Huffington attracted more than 77,000 engagements. So it does strike me that there is a movement, a positive movement, certainly in the LinkedIn community anyway, for people to want to actually move on, to do something different. So words have power and words have impact, and we just need to be sort of aware of that. If we can then move on, then I'm going to take you through now to two coaching models. They're just bite-sized coaching sessions, just to give you a taster of the type of things that we might be able to work with you on, were you to enter into some coaching sessions with myself and my team of coaches. And they're two NLP models. So again, sort of continuing that theme of neuro-linguistic programming, which will help you to continue to build your personal resilience. Okay, so the first of the models is all about the resourceful state, and it's something that I use frequently. What is it? It's a presupposition, so it's a statement that's framed in our mind that we all have the resources within us to face into any given situation, that we can draw on previous examples of when everything ran smoothly and we achieved our success in our goals. The coaching practice provided by SUMS is based on this premise, that you are all resourceful human beings. You do have the answers within you, but with the support of a professional coach, you can unlock what might be stuck or challenging you. The resourceful state isn't necessarily just self-speak. It can be physiological, multi-textural state, which if you develop over time, can be an incredibly useful strategy to deploy when you're heading into challenge. I'm just going to take a drink. Okay, so that's the resourceful state in a very brief nutshell. Just moving on, I wanted to share with you a few examples of some familiar faces and when I think they're leaning into their resourceful state. So the first sort of icon, I guess, I picked out was Jennifer Hudson. So she's reaching with her arms outstretched. She's wide and broad, so she's open to her audience and she's singing upwards. As a talented singer, to deliver the quality of performance night after night, she has to draw on her resourceful state to really exude that emotion and musicality to her audience, and she really looks like she's having fun here, so that's great. So Greta Thunberg, I hope I pronounced that correctly. I'm never quite sure. When she's in her best zone, if you like, when she's really in her resourceful state, you see her really sort of leaning into her microphone, her head's turned in, and she's got a little wry smile on her face. When we see her doing this, she's starting to get on a roll. She's really landing her points. Maybe she's been asked a question that she was desperate to answer to get her message out there, and she's delighting in responding. Hugh Edwards has his regular arm in across the body and arm outstretched on the news desk pose at the start of every news at 10. You'll notice sometimes how he might struggle without his desk as a prop. Here, though, he's welcoming, assured and trustworthy. And I had to include, on behalf of my twin sons, Cristiano Ronaldo. So my sons are 10 years old and mad Juventus fans, and Cristiano is one of their idols. But he really demonstrates, if you've ever studied Cristiano Ronaldo or football or people like David Beckham in the past, you know when they're really gearing up to do something where the pressure's on. So here you can see that he's faced with taking a free kick. He has to take control of his breathing and focus his mind. He pulls up his shorts to the middle of his thighs. His hands drop slightly outwards and his legs are anchored apart. He strikes a pose, he takes a breath, he shoots, and he mainly scores. Physiologically, all of these people and the people around us have strategies in place to help them perform at their best in stressful situations. You do too. You might just not be aware of what this is yet. It's basically about getting in the zone. Okay, so I'm going to take you into a mini coaching exercise now. Okay. Can I just pause a moment, because I just lost a couple of speaker notes, and this is important for this part of the presentation that I deliver well for you. So excuse the brief pause. The first coaching exercise we're going to do is going to help you to really establish your own resourceful state. If you're a little uncertain, I invite you to put your trust in me and let's just see where this takes us. Being able to draw on your own resourcefulness will help you to feel better and perform well in your role, even in times of uncertainty. For this exercise, we're going to focus on our belly breathing, a technique many of you may be familiar with. Focusing on the belly is an excellent way to cultivate a sense of being grounded. It's almost as though you're pulling your awareness deep into your body. So for now, please adopt a comfortable sitting posture and close your eyes. Place attention on your abdomen at a point that readily stands out to you. As the abdomen rises, observe the movement from start to finish. As it falls, continue to simply observe. Don't try to change or alter your breathing. Noticing that you've fallen into distraction or started to provide a commentary on the movements is a sign of success in your meditation. Simply return to the non-judgmental, present moment awareness of the rising and falling of your belly. I would now invite you to call up a memory of when something went really well for you at work. What were you doing? Who was with you? Where were you? And to really enrich this picture, let's try to tap into all of your senses. What could you see? What could you hear? What did you feel? What could you smell? And what could you taste? Can you put yourself in that moment now and capture it? And can you take a minute to enjoy it? You have the resources to be able to manage this current change. You've done this before in different circumstances, but you can do it again. Each time you return your attention, it is as though you are lifting a weight and strengthening the muscle of your mind. You might find it helpful to label the belly movements rising, falling, silently in your mind for a while. Before opening your eyes, rest in the feelings of centeredness and calm for just a few moments. If you want to start opening your eyes again, once you're back in the room, please just take some time to jot down what you noticed or what you experienced during the session and capture what might be useful for the future. Okay, so now that you're totally focused on the here and now and have tapped into your personal resources, I want to share with you the well-formed outcome model. I personally love this model as it truly helps to get inside any challenge I am facing and develop strategies to overcome them. I found this particularly effective to use when I'm facing a big change. So the example I would give when I took the decision to leave John Lewis after 24 years and change sectors. I spent a long time really thinking about what it was I really wanted and landed on a career in the public sector and higher education. This was a risky move and I reduced my salary substantially, but I gained so much in terms of work-life balance and stretching my brain, learning new things every day and putting them into the context of a context which was very different from retailing. So I'd recommend you gain the biggest benefit of using this model when working with a coach, either in a team or individual capacity. But if you're a confident facilitator and objective pragmatist, you could try using this with your team or some colleagues to start working through some issues. For the purposes of this exercise, I want you all to bring to mind a current challenge and looking ahead to visualising the new normal in either work, home or both contexts. If you haven't got an example ready, I would offer you that challenge of creating a new normal return to work plan. Let's take the opportunity to draw on our own personal resourcefulness to frame a positive and future-focused way of being. I also invite you to enter this session as though you and I are having a one-to-one coaching session. I'll ask the questions and give you some context whilst you think about how this relates to your own challenge. Feel free to take notes as you go along. So the first question that we want to ask, and I think it's one of 13, is what do I want from this change? Is it clear? Is it well thought through? What do I want to see, hear, and feel? So in neuro-linguistic programming terms, a commonly used example might be, well, the challenge that I'm going to set myself is I want to stop smoking. Okay, so from a positive and constructive point of view, that isn't necessarily the most positive statement, and we want to try to create a positive and constructive goal. So maybe we would reframe that and say something like, I want to have a healthier lifestyle. Okay, so what do I want? Is it clear and well thought through? What do I want to see, hear and feel? The next one is, does it fit with who I am and who I want to be? This is really important actually, because if you're starting on a journey for to challenge yourself with something new, you've got to make sure it's authentic or it's never going to stick. It just won't last. So checking in and making sure that what you're proposing is actually authentic to who you are is really vital. The third step is thinking about the context that you're in. Where are you? When's it going to happen? And with whom? So, what you do will affect others around you. There may be some limitations facing you that might stop you progressing through your your challenge, your goal. Just having that out on the table will help you to plan strategies to work around that. Fourthly, you need to start thinking about what's in your control. So we can't control, unfortunately, what Boris Johnson might declare next and how that impacts on the education sector. However, there are things that are in our control, and really just identifying those and bottoming them out is good, because again, helping to identify where you do have control is a help of gaining control of self and your state and your positive mindset. Fifth, we might like to think about what your present state does for me. So just flipping back to the example of the smoking, often people have smoked for a long time, and actually they've smoked because they enjoy it. It's a pleasant experience for them. They might know it's not good for them, and they might know that they want to change to have a healthier lifestyle. But you know, perhaps they've been holding on to it because they enjoy it. So just think about what your current situation is doing for you, and why you haven't made that change in the past. Moving on, we've got the next question, which is, when it is achieved, what will it do for me? So really thinking about what that change, what that challenge will give you is important. So again, when I made the decision to move from you know, quite a lucrative career in commercial retailing into the public sector, yes, there was a loss of salary, but I gained a huge amount, and I worked with some very good people that really enabled me to achieve that. The next thing is, what's important. So about this new goal, what crunch it down, what's actually really at the heart of this, what's super important about this change that you must make sure that you do. Then go on to think about what stopped you up to now. So why haven't you done it before? And within asking that question, you might be able to sort of reveal some of the blockages and barriers that you're going to have to overcome. Thinking about the effect it will have on others is important. We've touched on that a little bit by thinking about context, but again, thinking about let's think about the stopping smoking scenario and having a healthier lifestyle. So we've framed it as we want to have a healthier lifestyle. Perhaps that the effect will be positive on others. You might encourage your friends and your family to be positive and move towards the same goal as you. However, if you've got somebody that you're living with who's resistant to that and wants to carry on doing the unhealthy habits, that could cause conflict. So really understanding what effect it has on others is important too. Think about what resources you need. So what do you need to actually have around you to put in place to make this change successful? And a good example of this might be a running buddy. So again, we're framing a healthy lifestyle, a positive statement. Actually, maybe I need to onboard a friend to work with me. I might need to invest in a new pair of trainers. I might need to ring fence some time to be able to go and do this thing. I might need to go on a stop smoking course, and I might need to get some patches. Let's think about the things that you need to put into this bucket to really help you make this change work. The next one is a really good one. So we've done an awful lot of thinking up to this point, haven't we? We really have started to bottom out this problem and this challenge and this opportunity. At this point, a really good coach will ask you, is it actually worth it? So once you've gone through all of this process and you've asked yourself all of these questions, actually, is it worth it? And if you decide it's not worth it and you don't want to go through the change, that is absolutely fine. But it's good because you won't have wasted the time or disappointed yourself. You'll be walking into this with your eyes wide open. And again, it might just help you really consolidate around the goal that you're trying to achieve. Thinking about the secondary gains and losses is important too. So what do you gain and what do you lose as a result of this? And the most importantly, how will I start and how will I keep it going? So our final bubble is, how will I start and how will I keep it going? Again, thinking about the support that you might need, the momentum that you might need to carry on with this challenge is really, really important. So again, I'm just going to take 2 minutes just to stop and allow you to digest all of that. Think about what that means for you and see if there's, something, if that's helped you to develop your challenge, that would be really good. Feel free, by the way, to use the Q&A function in this time. We're really keen to hear from you, any questions, reflections or observations about what we've been discussing today. And by the way, the slides will be shared with you. So you will have a PDF of all of these models and some links to some resources as well, which you can use afterwards. I think I've mentioned that already, but don't feel you have to scribble all of this down. we will have this for you. So I'm just going to draw that session to a close now. In this model, you have started to help yourself develop a vision of your new normal. Being aware that this may take some time to develop as clarity arrives, you are giving yourself the best chance to make sure you are leaning into the challenges you're facing, capturing and enhancing what has worked well about that moment in time, and prepared for what will come next, even if you do not know what that will be. Okay. So I'm now going to be joined by my lovely colleague, Fola Ikpahai, who, as I said, is the lead consultant for change in SUMS, the principal consultant for change in SUMS. And as also mentioned, we have worked together on a number of projects. So we're quite comfortable having a conversation now about coaching. So welcome, Fola.
Brilliant. Yeah, great session, Felicity. Thank you. So a few questions have come in. One has just come in on the chat, actually. So I'll read that out first of all, because I think it's very focused around the well-formed outcomes. Mm-hmm. So this question says, how long would you spend on this model with a coachee? Would you explore this over a number of sessions?
That's a really good question. So I think that the answer to that would be it would depend on the individual. So it might be something that you introduce quite early on in a coaching bundle. So we bundle our coaching sessions around 6 sessions, 9 sessions, or 12 sessions. So it would really depend on how deeply I think the client wanted to get into that model. I mean, we really have just, skimmed the top. There are many, many models out there that our coaches have access to and use and deploy. So it wouldn't just be this, it would be a number of different things that would be brought in. So you could do it in one session. But you could do it in one session, and then you could ask the client, the coachee, to go away, take it and really work with it, and then come back and bring it to the next session and sort of describe what they've discovered and found out. But from a personal point of view, when I was using this with myself, when I was making that transition from retail into higher education, if I'm honest, it probably took me months to keep going back around that wheel and really making sure that I was making the right decision. Very, very conscious of, some issues around supporting the family particularly as well, and making sure that what I was doing was sustainable. So it's varied. It's the short answer, and our coaches would go at the speed that was right for the client.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure that has given that respondent, yeah, that's fine. Okay, but let's explore this particular, because I like this model actually. I said this the first time that you spoke about it at a previous webinar. How would you use this in like a team setting? Would you use it in a team setting?
You could absolutely use this in a team setting. And again, I'd recommend that you have a facilitator, a neutral facilitator, to use the model, to be that objective broker, if you like, and to ask some of the difficult questions and read the room and what's coming up. But yes, I mean, you could absolutely plan a team session around this. You could, again, sort of in the way that I described before, you could perhaps have an hour, 90 minutes, really, working through the different questions that are there, get everybody to sort of take it away, reflect, think about it, and then come back together and share what they've decided. I think you'd want to have the same challenge. So, for example, Fola and I are sort of quite fanatically actually talking about the new norm at the moment. It's just on our minds for some reason. So if you were to use the new norm as the context for a team coaching session, so here our team, we know that we're going to have to change some things. We know that there have been some good things that we've experienced through this crisis. And we know that there have been some things that have been really challenging and difficult. Let's work through this model and think about our framework for operating into the future. Yeah. So yeah, you can absolutely use this as a team.
Great. A few observations coming in on the Q&A. This is an interesting observation, just emphasizing the fact that you've just talked about the new normal. Says, we may have been content with our previous normal, but until now, it perhaps wasn't obvious. A new way of working gives us permission to dream and aspire. Would you agree to that statement? What would you add to that?
Wow,
That's a lovely sentiment.
I'm just going to bring that up myself so I can read it in the Q&A. So
it's a lovely statement.
Yeah, so we may have been content with our previous normal, but until now, perhaps it wasn't obvious. A new way of working gives us permission to dream and aspire. That's a fantastic statement. So I think, again, using this model, or a number of different coaching models actually, you can draw on what was good before, because we don't want to throw it all out. It wasn't all bad, there were some bad habits, I think, that, as a society that we got into, and I would call out things like the approach to the environment. Probably, I think the UK works incredibly hard, so that sort of long hours culture, I would personally like to see that go. But yeah, some of the really good things have been around maybe embracing technology to meet new people, and actually one of the things that, in fact, you'll see at the end of the presentation that myself and one of my colleagues, Ellie Highwood, have created a sort of talking heads style article. One of the things that really sort of stands out to me as an opportunity for working currently and in the future is a much more trust-based, output-based way of working. So whether managers like it or they don't like it, they've had to let people work around their families, work around their personal circumstances, do their very best to deliver. And so maybe that risk of that real risk of sort of micromanaging maybe, or over focusing on people's what they're doing rather than what they're delivering. Maybe that's one change we can make. No, that's a really lovely observation. Thank you for giving that.
It's a great one. And just on the back of that, I think this probably spurred this thought on from someone in the chat. What are your views on using a coaching approach to day-to-day management? That's,
again, a great question. So I would say that there are two things. So there's a coaching client relationship, which is a pure coaching client relationship. It's contracted up front. It's that confidential working space, and you normally would deliver that in across sort of 6 to 12 different sessions. When I was first trained to be a coach, and actually I know I've got some coaches on the call as well, on the line today. When I first trained as a coach, actually we were recommended not to purely coach our team, because it sort of blurred a boundary. So that's why we recommend sort of setting up a bit of a coaching network, so that you can, so maybe you've got a close line manager ally who can coach your team and you can coach their team if there's a defined coaching need. However, I would also say that as a line manager, not currently a line manager, but a very experienced line manager through my years of sort of professional life, I definitely developed a coaching style. So that the coaching style is very much about drawing out and using people's resources, and again believing that they've got the answers within them, and trying to get them to engage and buy into what it is that they're doing. So I think there's two different things. I think there's the pure coach client relationship, and I think then there's that sort of management coaching style, and there are many different management styles and leadership styles out there. Of course there are, but my personal preference is to use that sort of coaching management style.
It's a good point that you made about managers networking together and essentially sharing themselves across the teams as coaches for their partners. So yeah, that's a good call there. What's coming here, something else in the chat. Fear and anxiety tend to be the things that stop us from making changes. The person has personalized it, but I said us, particularly in this uncertain environment. Do you use any particular tools or approaches to manage, mitigate non-clinical anxiety?
Yeah, so that's a really
wide
good one.
question.
That's very, very wide, but actually something that's really close to my heart. So I'm really happy to sort of share with you in this sort of confidential, safe space that anxiety is something that I struggle with at times, particularly when I'm out with my 4 children and they are running amok. I sometimes freeze. I'm either shouting or I'm freezing. So that sort of fight or flight really comes in. So yes, there are many different tools that we can use to help sort of alleviate some of that anxiety. The breathing exercise that we did today is just one. And again, sort of meditation. Now meditation sounds quite old school, but it's there for a reason. It's a good practice to get into. And I have to admit, it's actually taken me probably about 10 years to properly be able to meditate. But I'd say that sort of that mindfulness meditation, really trying to get yourself in the zone when you're thinking about making those changes, can really be helpful. But if you want to pick that up offline, I'm more than happy for you to drop me a line and we can have a chat. I'm very happy to have an individual chat with you if you would like to talk about that more.
Okay, great. So we'll share Felicity's email address and you can get in touch with her after this session. There is one question that came up here, and this actually came up when you went through that first coaching exercise.
Yeah.
And you were talking about the zone.
Yeah.
And this person said, how do we get in the zone when we live and work electronically at the moment? Any response to that?
Yeah, so again, I think that's a very pertinent point, because if we're thinking about the new normal, and perhaps we might see when we do return to the office, the campus, the school, the college, get back to our desks, we might see that actually this way of working becomes a bit more relevant, a bit more normal. So this is a really important question to answer. So what I would say is, how engaged and how connected in this environment have you felt? So when I'm doing a session like this, I'm really I try to be anyway, and you will feedback to me on the survey, please, about whether or not I've achieved this. But I try to be myself. I try to be very inclusive. I act exactly as I would in a normal meeting. So I take a drink if I need to, because I get a dry mouth. I use my hands because I'm very expressive. And I talk very much about being in the room. So creating almost that virtual room together, that we are all here together. And getting in the zone when we live and work electronically. So there are some practical things that you can do. So I've actually just invested in some headphones. Up until then I was working off a normal microphone, but this is really good because it cancels out everything else around and it just helps me to really focus in. So there's some practical things that you can do as well. But I think if you are running meetings or facilitating sessions electronically, virtually, then just creating a really inclusive virtual environment is super important. And you can ask your delegates up front actually about how they want to do that. So Zoom is a great piece of technology. There's lots of different ways. Again, for people that are not familiar with Zoom, I can certainly point you in the direction of somebody that I've learned from who could help you.
Okay, great. Okay, one has just come in. Let's see whether this is a comment or a question. Using the well-formed outcome model in your personal life can perhaps also help in your work life. So yes, more of a comment, but I think you've highlighted that, haven't you, Felicity?
Yeah, because so often you can't separate out the two. You just cannot separate out what goes on at work and what goes on at home, especially at the moment. You know, we're all in lockdown, we're all sort of in the house together. There's just no getting away from them. So absolutely, I think you make a very, very good point.
Okay, and one last question. I think if I can just try and squeeze this in, what's the empirical evidence that confirms the efficacy the effectiveness, I can't say the word, of coaching?
Yeah, so I haven't got the data to hand. I can't call that up here and now. I can commit to coming back and sharing some with you. I believe there's some information on my own website which you can access through the SUMS website. The SUMS have a coaching coaching and development landing page, and if you go through that, you can access the coaching information, and there's some information on there. I would also point you to the ICF, so the International Confederation of the International Coaching Federation. My apologies, I'm getting my words jumbled up now. And there's lots of information and data available on their website. But I'm happy to go away and do a bit more finding out and share that back with you.
Okay, so I'll give it back to you now, Felicity, to continue with the session. That's great. Thanks for all the questions, guys.
Thank you so much. That was really, really good. Very, very insightful, and some helpful questions. So we're just now moving into the summary session. I would just encourage you to hold on. Don't leave the session just yet, because there are some other things that I want to share with you. If we can just go to the slide where I'm introducing our coaches. So we have the guys that are grouped together with the teal backdrop are all of the Oyster Outcomes associate coaches. And as mentioned up front, we are really pleased to be working with SUMS to provide their coaching offer. You can go into the Oyster Outcomes website again through the SUMS portal, or just Google Oyster Outcomes, and tap on each face, and there's a deeper profile available for you to look at them. So if you are considering some coaching and you want to get to know these people a little bit better, then they're there for you to sort of access and see. And we also have the fabulous Alison Price, who is a SUMS associate consultant. So she has led the way on SUMS coaching to date, and she's also great. She did some really good work at the University of Oxford, which again I've referenced at the end of the presentation, so that you've got access to all of these people. So the next piece is how to really sort of, once a coaching need has been identified, how do you actually get hold of us? So the first step is to identify the need, and that can be a coaching or mentoring requirement. And the difference between coaching and mentoring is coaching is much more facilitative, it's much more neutral, and enabling the individual to do the work themselves with some really well thought through questions and some models to work through. Mentoring might be a bit more along the lines of, actually, I've walked in your shoes before, I've got some examples and some advice of how you might want to approach this situation. So it's a bit more like somebody walking alongside you and giving you advice on how you might approach something. A coach won't advise, a coach will facilitate you to find your own answers. Step 3, then the client has 2 free 30-minute chemistry sessions. So I will take the initial brief from you, and you will talk to me about what it is that you're looking to achieve. I will then sort of identify. You'll probably have had a look at the website yourself and seen a couple of familiar faces that you think you might like to work with, and from my knowledge of my talent pool across the network, I'll also suggest a couple of people. You have access to 2 free 30-minute chemistry sessions, so you can talk to the coaches down the line and see who you want to work with. And then step 4 is the coaching starts. So you agree confidentially with that coach what it is that you want to work with, and off you go. And you identify whether you need 6 sessions, 9 sessions, or 12 sessions. So that's just a very basic process flow. Just some additional information, as mentioned, we can provide individual and team coaching, mentoring and coaching supervision. So I know many universities actually have their own coaching network in place, but they may not have a coaching supervision offer. So we can do that. We have some qualified coach supervisors. The other thing we can do is we can come into your university and help you to establish a coaching network. So when we discuss that sort of peer-to-peer coaching scenario, we can help you do that. We have very experienced people who can come in and do that. You can use your SUMS membership days to cover the cost of coaching. I think this is a little hidden secret. So again, as we sort of approach year end, maybe you might find that you have some days left to use, and actually what better time to really use them than now when people are facing into so much change. As mentioned before as well, you can select those packages of either 6, 9 or 12 coaching sessions. They're typically an hour each in length. And as things stand, they're delivered via video call or phone. All of our coaches subscribe to the ICF's Code of Ethics and are fully qualified, working towards, or are fully qualified, and they're working towards or have attained accreditation with one of the 4 main coaching bodies of excellence. Okay, nearly there now. So summing up, we've taken you through some of the NLP-based models in a very, very short space of time. These are very broad subjects which pull from a range of different theories, models, disciplines and approaches. Quality professional coaching is really worth exploring carefully, and not every coach has these capabilities. A resourceful coach will be capable of drawing on their knowledge and expertise in a client-centric way. If you're interested in pursuing coaching, whether it's through us or through someone else, just please make sure that you're at ease with the individual and that you have confidence that they will work with you to support and challenge your own thinking. And that's really important. A coach that can get the very best out of you is going to be able to challenge you at key points, not just create an echo chamber. So not just reassure you necessarily that everything's fine and rosy. They're going to really help you to sort of interrogate and get inside whether it is and what you can do about it. And we've included our contact details here if you would like to get in touch. SUMS prides itself on adding value to its members. And so Professor Ellie Highwood and I have written an article on exploring coaching opportunities for academics and for the professional services. So maybe coaching's more used in professional services, I'm not sure. But as an academic herself, Ellie is now leading her own coaching organisation as well as working through Oyster Outcomes and SUMS, and she's really articulated the opportunity that's there for academics very, very well. So take a little look at that. It's just a talking heads piece, and very much sort of speaking from the heart. Okay, and last but not least, we've got a number of resources for you to access here. So we've captured the key websites, the change curve. We shared the William Bridges model. If you want to listen to Mary J. Blige's song, you can go to it on YouTube. It's quite upbeat, so it's a nice song to listen to. And then I've included the grounding exercise, also the link to the Arianna Huffington piece, and just really a Wikipedia explanation of what NLP is if you want to find out a little bit more about what we've been doing today. I've also added in some additional resources that I think are useful. Some of these are produced by a couple of previous colleagues. So Vonnie Alexander, I first worked with when she was Director of Marketing at my brand marketing agency when I worked in Waitrose. And Helen Hyde, it has recently left John Lewis Partnership, and she was their personnel director, and chief sort of principal assurance lead, amongst many other things. So there's some nice articles in there for you to have a look at and just build on that theme of building personal resilience and resourcefulness. And then finally, I've included the SUMS case study from the University of Oxford. Okay, so I really hope that you've got something from today. As I say, the feedback that you provide me in the in the survey would be brilliant. Thank you very much in advance for doing that. Grace, our fabulous producer, will be writing to you by the end of today, sharing the slides, sharing the Survey Monkey, and also sharing a link to the article that Ellie and I have written. Please do get in touch if there's anything that you're left wondering about. I'm more than happy to answer that offline. Thank you very much for your time.